Welcome, everybody, to Learn With Lowell. Today, we're joined with Claire Leng, who is joining us today to be part of the Millennial Monday series, which aims to help millennials with everyday life and just kind of navigate the turbulent times that we seem to all be living in right now. She is here to share her experiences navigating her career as a senior manager at Big Four, a technical consultant on supply chain transformation, and even, I'm told, how to learn, like meta learning strategies, which I'm a big fan of, Learning with Lowell, as everyone can guess. So, Claire, welcome to the show.
And thank you, Lowell, for having me.
Yes. So, first big question I have for you, and for everyone probably listening as well who isn't familiar with these things, what does a senior manager do? Like, what does like a day look like for you?
Yeah. Oh, thanks for asking that question. I think that's quite interesting. So, just give a little bit more background before I even dive into the senior manager. So, I've been actually recently being promoted from a manager to a senior manager. So, the way that they evaluate how do I promote someone to be a senior manager, because every year you would have hundreds of people trying to compete and then get to promote it to the senior manager. So, the qualification, the first most important one is that are you already behave or like managing like a senior manager? So what does it mean, right? So that means that you're not only just leading a team that it can be a small size team, like 1 to 10 or 20 people. So one is that you are leading a team. Second one is you are not only just leading this team to deliver what you are supposed to do, what you're supposed to deliver to the customer, and you are looking at a little bit more bigger pictures. So meaning that you're not just I'm just giving an example from my background, right? So I am in the supply chain within the SAP department within my firm. So now the even within the supply chain, you have different little modules. So such as the order to cash, meaning that how do I sell and then get to the creating a customer billing and then issue it out to the customer. And then besides the order to cash, you have warehouse management, you have transportation management. So all of those modules will have different team managing them. So normally that's a manager's job. So what does senior manager do? Senior manager is not only just looking at how do I sell something and bring something out of my inventory and get myself paid. Also, how do I transport certain things to my customer? How do I like overseeing this warehouse? How do I oversee my inventory? How do I pick the goods and move it out?
At any point in this conversation, if you find value in it, please subscribe. It is hugely beneficial, and it tells Google and everyone out there that this is content worth watching. Thank you for everyone thus far who has commented, liked, subscribed, and told their friends.
So I would say like senior manager is someone who will be able to see a little bit more end-to-end solutions. That's one. And secondly is like you are more kind of like just looking at the issues from the bigger pictures, not only just looking at the like everyday transactions anymore, but it's more of the bring yourself to a little bit higher level to kind of like doing that kind of like solution design. At least that's from my end. Now I will say there are different expectations on top of the delivery for the senior manager, such as can you build up the strong relationship with the client? That's one. And secondly is can you actually provide long-term strategy growth, provide some kind of like I'll say we keep saying the value added suggestions, advices. That's just really like from your day-to-day work. You look at something that's some place that's lacking, and you can provide certain like suggestions that help your client to grow the business or either grow the business or tackle their issues. So that's something that senior manager would do.
Do you also handle international
Hmm.
supply chain, or is it purely domestic in terms of how
Okay.
your scope of your work?
Yeah. So I would say the short answer is yes, we do deal with import and export. However, I want to like call out the differences. Especially within my area of work, we're not just doing the supply chain. I'll say supply chain strategy advisory. We are implementing a software, which is an enterprise resource planning software called SAP, and that is a software that mimic the daily operation and also the supply chain management works. So within the software, we do the import and export management. And again, go back to my background, which is more of the order to cash or AKA sales and distribution. So import and export is quite important for us because whenever that we are managing, helping customer to manage in the sale, especially when they're trying to sell something from one country A to country B, they will have to manage in the custom, they have to manage in the pro forma invoice. And on top of that, they have to considering, okay, maybe I have my company entity from country A, and I'm selling this. Do I have to like directly sell it to my customer, or do I sell it to my entity within that country B, and then transfer that material to the customer? So all those daily transactions or actual like operation steps needs to reflect in the SAP. So that is
Mhm.
that part of the work that I'm dealing with. So yes, indeed, that we help with the import and export with different modules and with different kind of like tailor configurations to fulfill customers' requirement.
Is there like an
Uh-huh.
ideal customer that you really get the most enjoyment out of solving those like the problem sets that you're gonna have to deal with a certain customer, that type of thing? Is there like an
Yeah.
ideal customer size, etc., that you really
Oh, ideal
like digging
customer
into?
size. Okay. So I think like also, so I'll answer from like two perspective. One is like more from the cultural wise or maybe like
Hmm.
geographic wise. I'll say the most fun and enjoyable and friendly customer that I deal with are actually from Louisiana. So like we did a
Mm.
lot of project within the refinery work. So I traveled to Louisiana a lot, and we go to this little city called Chalmette, which is like I think it's like a 20 minutes away from the New Orleans. So all the clients are like super fun, and they're kind of just like treating you as almost like a friend on daily life. Because sometimes you will think that okay, you bring the consultant in. Sometimes it's not always kind of like sunshine and rainbow that those consultants come in. What are they doing? Do they really know what they're doing? Why are we paying
Mhm.
them this much money for? Why are we not paying our own people? And are they coming in to steal our job? So all these thoughts. But while I deal with like people from West Coast, East Coast, and all across the Americas, I think like yeah, I really enjoy with dealing with people or my clients from the Louisiana. So Southern hospitality is really no joke, right? So it's like super fun to deal with, very easy to talk to. And very easy to kind of like just understand what the requirement is and helping them in a very cooperative way. So that's one perspective. Now, second perspective is what is a fun problem to solve, right? Like what is the challenging things to keep the work more like interesting and challenging. I want to say that the most interesting and fun part of dealing with different customer is that when they again they don't treat you as like more like a consultant, but they kind of like want to listen to what do you have to offer, because I think that's like more of like establish the trust though. So I understand that whenever like company hiring the consultant, first thing is that do you actually know what you're talking about? So that's one. And secondly is that okay, so like now I tell you what I want. Do you actually understand what I need? So I think once you actually establish that you are here to not just coming in and just show them what to do, like I know the best, but more of like coming in and just say, hey, like I will listen to you first, because one of the another key problem is that consultants sometimes talk too much, right? Like we talk too
Hmm.
much and we tell them what to do, and then sometimes it may not necessarily tackle customers' problem. So I think like one is that we go in and then shows the interest of the problem and can just actually listen to their pain points, and then based on our experience, based on our background, and kind of provide them solutions, suggestions that does not require too much complicated knowledge or kind of like documentation to understand those solutions. So that's when like when you achieve this balance, you build up this trust, then clients that trust you, then you kind of like build up this like relationship. So I think that's when you actually go into this like I want to say like maybe like a honeymoon period when customer truly trusts you. They want to hear what you say, and you also kind of like understand their pain points, and you kind of like just making yourself part of the company, not just treating yourself as a consultant. So I think that's when the real balance coming in. You really enjoy the work. Yeah.
Sounds like the key thing is you do a lot of listening in a world
Yes.
where a lot of people do talking. That's a big takeaway, so that they can kind of let it out. If they are feeling a negative way about your presence, maybe they'll say it, but then like 2 minutes later they'll start talking about the problems. Then minutes later, then you
Hmm.
have a better sense of things. And so it sounds like that's a key element to let people know, like, hey, I'm a person who's here to help versus here to just tell you what to do, which
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
is really interesting.
Yeah, exactly. It's just never be too arrogant. That's one. And secondly is that truly just really listen to them. Yeah, I've seen like some of the issues just from the past years of the experiences that sometimes you may think you understand the questions, and sometimes because we work in so many industries, we think we have all the experiences that we have. Maybe I work in a, I'm just giving an example. Maybe I have worked in the agriculture company before, and the client does ask, okay, what do you have? What is the experience that you work for the other company? Tell me, what did you do? And then yeah, like, that's when we'll talk, and client will like kind of try to listen. But it's again, it's a balance. You cannot just keep telling client, well, like the company A that I work for did this. Why don't you guys just do that? You
Hmm.
have to like kind of like just kind of like get in and tailor the problem and say, hey, maybe we can just take away some of the lesson learned from the company A, but not like complete copycat of whatever the company A did, because some of the solution is just not applicable for the different client.
Mm-hmm. Is it so? It sounds like you're at the point where you have essentially, not mastery, but like because like mastery is always an elusive thing. You're always going to keep working and being,
Hmm.
improve your ability to listen, improve your ability to execute. But it seems like you're at the point where like you're very proficient and good at executing when it comes to on this aspect. How long did it take you, day to day, trial and error, to get to the point where you could be this proficient? Like, because I
Hmm.
think a lot of times people, millennials otherwise, they see someone who's good at what you're doing, just anything, good at anything. They think, oh, they hatch from the egg that way. But
Yeah.
there's like an ugly duckling phase of everything. So I'm just kind of curious, how long was the ugly duckling phase before you turn into like a swan who can? This is a really weird metaphor, but like just
Uh-huh.
someone who can like
Yeah.
execute on these things.
Yeah, I'll say we're still on the way to become a swan. I'll say that. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'll say it does take a while, and I appreciate the question, in fact, because so I'm originally from China, so language is actually the first barrier. I would say that when I first got to the US, the first challenge is that, well, how do I study and how do I talk to people if I'm not even that good at speaking English? So it does take a while for me to get kind of like, okay, I can fit into the culture, truly understand, and I can hold a conversation with people normally. So it took me for a while, so like at least like year or two to just really get into this like English language environment. That's one. And then once I start get into the kind of like a corporate world after I graduated from the college, got into the corporate culture. So it still did take me some time to just try to understand that what am I doing here, right? So it's like you graduate from school now, you don't have any like kind of like a true assignment, you don't have paper dues every day. So now what, right? And can just like sit down and thinking that, well, do I just sit in the company and doing exactly one thing for just rest of my life? So that is where I really kind of just start thinking that I want to learn. I guess like that's one of the key pivot point is that I still want to learn and I still want to kind of experience different things, not just doing like one thing for the rest of my life. So I think that's where I picked the consulting career. It's really suited for me, for my personality, and for my kind of motivation to just keep learning. So once I get into the consulting company, again, like I'm very lucky to be able to work with a group of very smart individuals. I kind of just like keep learning, right? Just you observe what's going well with them, and maybe what's like not going well with the meetings and all those deliverables. Just kind of like keep learning. So I would say that after I got into the consulting company and I still working, learning, and sometimes even learning about how to deal with different people from different consulting companies, because sometimes client may not just hire one consulting company, they may hire a couple of them. So you have to learn how to deal with client, you learn how to deal with your boss, your own manager, and then you deal with different consultants. So after all this like up and downs, I would say like, and then that's another like 2 years to go. And then finally I just realized, okay, so there are certain ways that I like to work. One is to truly understand the company whenever I get into the project. Not only I'm just trying to understand, okay, what are we doing to implement the IT? It's an IT project. Not only I'm just trying to understand the how to implement this IT project, I truly trying to understand that how does this client work? How do they make money? What is their strategy? What is their market strategy? What is their long-term mission? What is their value? And exactly how they run the business. So all of this information really helped me when I have the conversation with client. So I'm not just coming in as an IT person. I'm coming in as almost like a truly like I'll say like a supply chain transformation team, and that's what we're trying to strive to, right? So I'm just not just here to implement the software for you. I'm here to help you to use the software to efficiently to improve your day-to-day work. So I'll say it did take a while. I'll say for 4 to 5 years if we really want to put a number on it. Yeah.
Hmm. It sounds like the hardest part of the journey you went on was the move from China to America.
Hmm.
But it also sounds like that was probably the thing that's given you the skills that when you look around you, you have that other people probably don't have, because you went from like, the big language barrier, learning that, like if you can make that transition, imagine, figuring out a company, listening intently to the people around you comes much more naturally as a direct comparison to the people around you who maybe didn't have that experience and probably are less skilled at it because you just had to go through that crucible and be forged by it so much.
Yeah. I think that it might be one of the point for sure.
Hmm.
So, again, because I really have to listen to you. I have to like, listen to you like tentatively to understand what you're trying to say and digest, and then kind of like come up with my kind of like the response and solutions. So yeah, I'll say it does play a role.
Yeah. And then I think something that's really interesting to me is as people learn more, I think sometimes people wonder like what does someone who's good at something and someone who's new at it see? Like what do they
Hmm.
both see when they both look at the same problem? And usually the person who's new tries taking in everything. They don't know what to focus on, what not to focus on, what
Hmm.
to ignore, what to not ignore, etc. And the person who knows more usually is like, I know to focus over here because that's P&L balance sheet or whatever, or like some elements
Hmm.
to start build cobbling together the framework to like push forward. And so it using I don't know if there's an example that you could share or whatever you, but what do you go in looking for to do that? What do you look for and not look at? So with your knowledge base that someone coming in new would just be like bombarded with like all the data coming in and miss.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, especially I think for the people, and even just I'm thinking about like when I first joined the company, and it kind of just like, oh my gosh, like things are happening like all over the place, and I have to like solve like today's ticket, I have to solve today's defects, and how do I start? And also like how when a client asks me some questions, how do I answer without making myself looking like a fool, right? So I think first one is that I want to say like there's no shortcut to everybody, like especially within the IT world and within the consulting world. If you want to be a solid consultant, there's no shortcut other than really build up the knowledge foundation. And that's something that I've been telling my so we call it new staff and consulees, if you will. So that's my advice to them. Like just don't think of taking a shortcut. I mean, I know that there's ChatGPT out there, but that when you actually talking to your client face to face, you cannot just take out your phone and start like ChatGPT, right? You cannot come up with answer. So again, build up your strong foundation of knowledge. So once you have that kind of like a formula, you have the knowledge base in your head, when a customer asks you some questions, you can immediately kind of spot out like, okay, what are they really asking? They may asking you just quick example, just thinking that maybe they say, hey, like what if like how do I return certain things before I issue invoice to my client, right? So like can I just do that, right? And then you have to like rethink like what are they really trying to ask? They're trying to ask that how do I reverse logistic this thing, and but also I don't want to like show the kind of like showing the debit and credit on my invoice account. So if I don't understand the SAP, if I don't understand the business at all, I might just come up with something. I don't know, just come up with something. Okay, maybe like this issue you can just solve it by maybe just like, return it and kind of like manually correct those items and whatnot. But if you truly understand the business meaning, purpose behind it, you truly understand what system can do. The advice would be that, okay, so the account posting, the happening within the system and the output of the invoice are two different things. You can still show certain things. You can still like show, hey, like maybe I did the posting, I did the corrections on my accounting. But the form that you print out and then you give it to the customer is completely different thing. Customer will never actually see your company's own account posting. All they get is a piece of paper. On the piece of paper, you can just show whatever value like net due with a customer without showing all this like negative numbers. So again, it takes time for you to understand that, okay, what is the business purpose? What can system do to be able to come up with a solution? And it does take time to learn, to read, and to go through all these meetings and to listen to all these recordings of the training videos. But I think that it does help.
Are there words, phrases, or maybe it's just a feeling you have when you
Hmm.
know you're at the point where you're understanding their problem? Is it like a that's right, or do they give you? How do you know when you've met that threshold of understanding them?
You mean like how? I'm just trying to understand this. Like, do you mean like okay, at one point that you understand that? Oh, hey, like I understand that what you're asking for, or
Yeah, yeah. There's a book called Never Split the Difference, and in it, I think it's
hmm.
Chris Voss. He says that when the person understands you when they say that's right versus you're right, because you're right, they're just kind of trying to get you to shut up or like move on with
Okay.
the conversation. But
Uh-huh.
that's right is them saying, "Oh wow, that's true. I'm now going
Uh-huh.
to internalize that." So like, I always
Uh-huh.
wonder when you're looking to ask and understand, how do you know when you've dug deep enough so you can start making the correct response? And like in that example, it's wait until you hear it. That's right. When you understand it, and you can say it's because
Mm-hmm.
of this. You're trying to do this, right? And they say,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's right. That's what I'm trying to do. Like that's a key indicator. But I'm just kind of curious if you found anything else that lets you know that you've reached that threshold of understanding.
Mm-hmm. I would say like the point. I would say the obvious sign is that when I start talking about the solutions, hey, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? They all become quiet, right? So first thing is that they become quiet, and then someone will say, "Oh yeah, we didn't think of this." So yeah, and then that's actually a great feeling of like, hey, like I'm helping you. That's why you're hiring me for, to look at the things that you may normally thinking of or looking at different angle. Because when you're dealing with certain things too long, I mean, everybody do, right? Like when you deal with certain things too long, you get used to it. You get used to thinking of things or looking at certain things at the same angle for a while, and someone may coming in and talking about different angle that you're never thinking of.
Mhm.
And first thing you would think is that, oh, let me think about this, digest this, and they become quiet, and then someone will say, yeah, we can do this. Yeah, 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 that's a good idea. So again, and I've been actually experienced this quite a lot recently, so I think that's a great feeling for me too. Feels like great achievement to helping people to like solve the problem, like looking at the angle that they never thought of.
Mhm. And then for the business understanding skills, is to what extent is it, I mean, it's not like is it like Excel spreadsheets,
Mm-hmm.
analytics? Like, what is that? If you were to like cobble together the foundation level knowledge people would have to be effective in the role that you have,
Mm-hmm.
um, what are some of like the knowledge domains that you think would be really useful?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So, I'll say like, so my own background, I was major in management information system. So I
Mm,
was able to kind of like pick up the marketing, like
mm,
marketing 101 and accounting, managerial accounting and financial accounting 1 and 2, economics and all those things. And in addition to that, of course, supply chain, all of those foundational business knowledge. So I did learn about those, and then I learned about the kind of like programming and all this coding. So it's kind of combination of tech and business for this major. So in addition to that, I would say even if it's just someone, hey, who just graduated from like computer science and they want to learn about the business whenever they got into the consulting company, I would say like one is that definitely read up a lot of materials. So it's not that sometimes customer will provide you some of the documentation. I'll definitely read up on that. And Google is your best friend, right? So just Google about those information. Now, even in addition to that, because I am very I'll say a visual learner, so not only I'm just like reading the words, sometimes it just become words, like it's just too long. So what I would do is that draw the flow on my own, right? So okay, you're telling me this is the way that you are buying the raw materials, this is how you produce them, and this is how you sell them as your final goods. I'm going to draw the flow out of it, and which is, this happened a lot for the as a consultant, you have to know how to draw the flow. So you draw the flow and look at the exact business steps kind of like happening in front of you. So that would really help to like kind of like deepen the impression and help you to understand the business.
What do you do to make sure that maybe it's ChatGPT, maybe it's other things that you've been experimenting with, but how do you make sure that the ideas sync and are maintained so that they can execute on them well? Because theoretically, you could have the perfect idea, right? But if they don't follow through on it, they could be like, "Oh, well, it's a terrible idea," and it's your fault. And it's like,
Hmm.
well, you didn't even do your work. Do the
Right.
work. So like, how do you keep people? How do you keep that a momentum going so that things
Hmm.
can be achieved?
Yeah. So I'll say like so two things, right? So one is that how do we make sure that whatever we talked is aligned and also being followed through. And second one is how do we leverage the AI? So for the first question, that's also something that I keep telling like my fellow team members, or no matter like if they're new or they're kind of experienced, I would say like just always remember putting things in the words, right? So like if you have this meeting, just even just like write like a 3-4 sentence of the meeting minutes, like if you're like just that you just that short of time, write like 3-4 sentence. But like what I would like to do is to make sure that all the details, all the decisions that's been made has been documented in the meeting minutes. If there's action items, I will call the action out and also call the action owner out in the meeting minutes
Mm-hmm.
and share with everybody who joined the meeting, so that maybe after 2-3 months like someone come back and say, hey, has this been done? We can go back to the meeting minutes and check who was the action owner and what was the action. So, but normally it doesn't go to like 2-3 months. It's just exaggeration. So definitely meeting minutes helps us a lot. Putting things into the words helps to kind of like keep the audit trail. Now, as far as the AI goes, I think it's like a very also it's a hot topic, and it's like sometimes can get a little bit more sensitive, I would say, because when we're dealing, especially as a consulting company, when you're dealing with hundreds of clients, you also want to make sure that you're not kind of like just expose the information that you're not supposed to expose to the different AI or on the cloud and all of those things. So I thought it's interesting because our firm is actually invested a lot of money, so now they have their own version of ChatGPT, but it's our
Mhm.
firm's own ChatGPT. So the reason they do it is because they want to make sure you use our own firm's ChatGPT, so you don't use the this like a open AI's ChatGPT just in case anything that's being leaked. So that's one. So we are supposed to just use our own version of AI. And secondly is that I did run into the issue with, okay, so we're just, in the meeting, tracking the flows. It's definitely easier to type the words than just drawing out the flow. And then I end up with like tracking like 25 steps or 20 or 100 steps, let's say. And I was like, well, I really just don't want to like just put up all this like flow chart like into each of the swim lane, and it takes such a long time. So I also did find out like there is a thing called Chart GPT.
Mhm.
So it's a chart
Oh, okay.
AI that's kind of like building upon the Chat GPT, and you can just literally just enter in the words like, hey, 1, 2, 3, 4, and they will convert the frame for you. So I think it's great for like maybe like a prototype, or maybe just for like initial opportunities, and you can just show, hey, here is like some of the chart that we can do. But yeah, like I would agree that as far as the workflow goes, as far as the some of the minor like I don't know, like office work and all this like manual work goes, I think AI does help a lot.
Then for the role itself, for this type of work, are there
Hmm.
types of people that thrive in it particularly? Is there
Hmm.
like someone listening and you say, hey, if you're like this, if this if well, A, if anything that you've said so far sounds
Hmm.
exciting, like that's kind of a good indicator. But is there uh, like who would be the ideal person to do this type of work in your mind as a
Hmm.
senior manager? If you were doing hiring, like who would you be looking for to get
Hmm.
into this? Because I think half the battle for people is like just finding a role that they would love. And
Hmm.
so if they already like the interest is sparked, and then now all they have to do is just hear whatever you're going to say, just this answer, and then
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
they'll
for
know it's
sure.
for them.
For sure. So also like even within the consulting firm, so normally you hear like, oh, like your end goal is become a partner, and what does it mean when you get to the partner, right? So it's like if you think of the being a partner, you have to be able to sell, you have to be able to build up the relationship and keep growing the firm and bringing more jobs for the other people, right? So is that something that you really want to do? So I think like if you just think of all the glorious names and maybe money and all of those things that come to the partner title. So if that's something that you're really looking forward, I would say yeah. And then if you think about like what does partner do, right? You do sell, you do a lot of I would say like just kind of like a branding. You go to the market every day. So people that I think that would be really great at doing those, like even just like being like an ordinary consultant, would be someone who, again, understand the business. That's one. Secondly, is that you don't necessarily have to be a extrovert. I want to say like it's like there's a also kind of misunderstanding. Like all the consultants talk a lot. They're always just like extroverts. It's not quite necessary to be like a super like extrovert, but being a type A definitely helps. You are very like go-getter, you're always like very proactive, that helps. But as far as personality goes, as long as you are very friendly, I'll say that I think that's the number one point, right? You need to be friendly, you need to be able to like work with all type of people well. So that does not mean that you have to be an extrovert, you can be an introvert, but you can still like work with different people as long as you can build up this relationship with them. And then lastly, I would say it's someone who's very I'll say like goal oriented. You kind of like just already set your eyes on the end goal. You know that, hey, being a partner is, or being a senior manager is my career goal. I want to be there. I think you would definitely enjoy it. Because I did see that we do have some staffs coming in, right? Like they just graduated from college. The reason that they want to join consulting is because they want to travel. And then guess what? COVID happened. So everybody get locked down. So you don't get to travel. Then what? Right? So that's, I'll say it is a nice reason to have to join a consulting industry when you are young, when you want to explore, and maybe you don't know what you wanted yet. But after a while, I just feel like travel should not be your only reason. You should also see that, okay, do I work well with different people? And am I okay with continually learning even after, I would say, like not even just 35, I want to say like after 40, after 50, when I become a partner, I'm still learning all these new things consistently. Am I okay with it? So if the answer is yes, then yeah, I think then that this career path is definitely suited for you.
Mhm. And if you have most of those things, I was just thinking like, what's an everyday person that I've run
Hmm.
into recently that would be like a really weird but somehow fit this? Is there's like a lady at my local coffee shop that is like the perfect person who will listen to what the person's looking for, and
Hmm.
I think she just like naturally upsells them to something else, and then she like gets like a bonus or
Uh,
whatever for it. But that person sounds like they're good with working with different people. They're good at listening. And sure, it's coffee or whatever, but that's a transferable skill. So if you
hmm.
are someone who like if you're in like a service worker job and you're like, hey, is there an experiment you can do to see if this is something for you, and you can translate this to your role if you're not in a service worker job, but try to like try to listen to someone you're working with, and even like someone sitting across you, like
Hmm.
try and like sell them on a movie idea that you want them to check out or something. Like
Yeah.
you can test that skill if that's something that you don't have. So anything that we're talking about today, there's probably some small version that you can test out in yourself to see if that's something that not only if you enjoy, but if you have like some aptitude in it. And at the same time, see, I think sometimes people hear what something that you like all the things that you just said and think, well, I'm in a service worker. I'm this, so like how would that
Hmm.
translate over here? But really, like your statement of like listening to people and being like a self-taught learner. Like if you look at most applicate like job postings, those are two probably the biggest things that are universal across industries. Like people look for those things, like in the sense of like if you know how to learn over here and you're self-taught and you want to keep going, you probably can translate that into what you're talking about
Hmm.
today. And so I put that out there because I read the study that I think it's like if a guy will apply for something if they meet half the requirements, a woman will apply for something if they have 2/3 of the requirements. So reduce the requirements and see what you can actually do using what we just learned about today. It's just like my little you know addition to what you said.
Yeah, no, I like it actually. So we are kind of like, if you think of the consultant, it does kind of like similar to the service industry. All we do is making the client happy, right? Customer happy. So yeah, for sure, I'll say that's transformative. That's some skills that you can translate in between. Yeah.
And then so in when you're around a bunch of type A personalities, I'm imagining this environment where I don't know if you've ever been to a Toastmasters, but I went to a Toastmasters once, and it was like a competition to see who could talk the loudest. Because everyone's like, I'm the leader, no, I'm the leader, no, I'm the leader. And it's like, okay, guys, like
Uh-huh.
chill out. There's like 8 different types of leaders. Like you don't no one like the leader's not just the person in the front like saying where to go. There's like the leaders of
Hmm.
support who like help make check in with the team. There's so many different types. But so how much is managing the other type A personalities a part of it? I guess like office politics may be a synonym for what I'm
Hmm.
asking, but like how much is that a part of being successful in your role or the types of roles that you've have done to date?
Hmm. Yeah. And I would say like not only just like dealing with like maybe colleagues, a lot of type A person consultants,
Mm-hmm.
also even within the customer, you will always have like certain leaders or certain like regional managers who's like kind of like type A person. So we have to like kind of navigate through it. So one way I learned, especially during the meeting where everybody want to jump in and sometimes when you talk and trying to like just express your views and people will just cut you off, but sometimes it's no bad intentions, but they're just really trying to like get their opinion across. So I actually had to learn this not like recently, but like learn this after a few years of in the working, I would say like working full time, which is that can just calmly tell them that can let me finish my words first. So initially, if you especially are new and you're just joining and you feel like you're agreeing, you're trying to say something and people just kind of like not almost like not like disrespectful, kind of like disregard you. They jump in and they start talking. You're just like, okay, what do I do now? Right? Like, do I just let them talk? Maybe. Yeah, especially when you're new, you kind of just let it happen. But then after a while, you kind of just confident that, hey, like what I said, what I propose will definitely add value for this meeting. And I deserve this time, right? Like this time and space to like kind of express what I have to say. So I was just say like put the foot down, right? And say, hey, doesn't matter if it's colleague or your client, just say, hey, please let me finish my words yet. Let me finish my words first, and then you can express whatever you want to say, right? And I found that initially I was the reason I've been scared is because, okay, will they feel like offended? But no, it's not gonna happen. They also realize it's a very professional environment. They realize that they do need to let you talk, need to like let you express what you have to say. So I say put a foot down and then make sure that they hear you. That's one. And secondly is that I realize sometimes being a little bit silent or being a little bit quiet actually helps. So, for example, if I just trying to say something and someone cut you off, sometimes you just don't even say anything. You just kind of just being quiet. Especially also this just work again, different scale, different tactics that work out in different environment. This would especially work out well if you're in a in-person meeting and when someone trying to like cut you off and you okay, so you just step back and just like being quiet, right? Because and everybody else will notice this, right? Like it's okay, so the flow has been cut off. Maybe we'll let Claire finish what she have to say first, and then and then passing on. So again, I'm still keep learning. The trying to like see like what is the most graceful way to like working with the more of like a little bit more I'll say proactive or a little bit more aggressive type of personalities. It's still a learning experience, but the best way is just kind of like stay your ground and also just kind of like let it play it out. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely like the stand your ground mentality because I think it's people sometimes are very anti-confrontational. So the idea like, hey, I'm saying, can I finish my thing? Even though someone technically is riding over you and causing the confrontation, people sometimes feel like, oh, I'm causing the confrontation by standing up for yourself. No, you're like stopping the confrontation to some extent. In my mind, like that's like when I've talked to people, it's like think of it this way: like the person just trying to drive over you, they're doing the thing. You by saying, "Hey, can I finish?" It's just saying like, "Hey, don't run me over."
Yeah.
So like, I think that maybe like that's like a key thing that I think is sometimes hard for people. Just to, it feels confrontational, but technically the person running you over is being confrontational.
Yeah, exactly, and you have to like just learn to like say it, right? Like sometimes it's just like, whoa, like sometimes it's just like in your back of your mind, you hope like everyone's like being super like I was cordial and everybody's like being super professional and they will let you speak, but in real world, like they have some opinion, they have to say it like immediately, so you have to kind of like tell them, hey, let me finish first. Yeah.
Yeah, and I bet at the same time, they respect you more for it too, because you're
Yeah.
saying like, I'm going to be heard here, and they're like, oh yeah, okay, and then they're paying attention even closely to what you're saying, and then you're going to say something smart, and they're like, oh, we're going to listen to Claire more often. Like she
Yeah.
has all these great ideas.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. A tactic that I've used in the past when if I'm in a room with a bunch of type A's and they're like talking over each other is I pick the two most loudest ones and who are usually the sparkiest to things, and I wait for one to talk over the other one, and then I say, hey, I can't hear Claire. John, can you give her a minute? And then like so you appreciate me like kind of like bopping John, and then John's like, oh wow, okay. And then you'll be like, "Oh, Lowell, you were trying to say something a second ago," and you'll bring it back to me, and then I get to say what I want. But so that it's like a twofer. Not only do I speak up, keep like the community, just trying to listen or whatever, but I've kind of like done like a nice thing in your direction, and it's to come my way. But if John doesn't like what I did, they'll probably be mad at you, not me.
Right. Yeah, I think actually that's an interesting tactic, and I was also think like just keep in mind that you also kind of like just taking care of everybody else, right? So even after you finish all the words, maybe while you're talking, someone trying to say something but they did like kind of like back up, then after you finish, then you can just call out like maybe, hey John, like you were going to say something, like now it's your time, right? So just kind of like, hey, coming back in and then just give your inputs. So yeah, that'll keep the meeting flow.
And it puts you in a position where it just sounds like if all you did was just like call on people who like, hey, I didn't hear Claire. I think you were trying to say something earlier, or John, you were trying to say something earlier. Like people like, wow. Like imagine being in that position where someone just wrote over you, and Claire saying, hey, Lowell, I didn't hear you, or whomever's listening, write your name. I don't know who it is. Steve, there's a Steve listening right now. Steve, we didn't hear you a second ago. Like, how good would that feel? So if you can give that feeling to other people, like I think they'll enjoy working with you as well. So all these are little, just try it. Little things and build up the confidence. I think a lot of times, it's really just confidence. Like I think at the point of your life, you traveled from China to America, you learned a new language, you worked your way up from into different roles, listening, all these different things that you've done. So when you say, "Hey, listen to me," you have all that baked in to you as saying, like, I do deserve to be heard. I have all this in me, and so I think there's a difference between confidence and arrogance. And the big difference for me is which one has data and evidence supporting it. Arrogance is usually like, I've never flown a jet, but if I said I could fly a jet, like I think there's like a joke a year ago where like a bunch of people were like I could land a jet if I need to. It's like that's pretty arrogant, like because you've never flown a jet. But
Right, right.
if it's like if my partner passed out, I could like steer the car gently to the curb. That's like probably more confident. Like it's not the exact situation you've been into, but you know how to drive a car. Like one has a little bit more data in terms of your experience, and I think like for people listening in, if you feel like you're not, just my 2 cents on this to continue it is the if you feel like I don't have the ability to do X, Y, or Z, look at your past. Like you're saying, like there's a lot of stuff that translates in, but if you have done a lot of stuff, why shouldn't someone listen to you when you're trying to speak in these environments? So, and then realize it's not confrontational. You're just helping things along. I think that
Yep.
helps too. Yeah, and then what is it your? Do you ever see it your objective to try, um, like building your own company or focusing into like one role in that way? Or is consulting really stimulating in the sense of like you could just try so many different things, like that's something that you enjoy intrinsically of itself?
Yeah, I'll say that, well, back when I was younger, I just thinking of that, okay, do I want to like maybe just go ahead and start my own company for sure? But one thing I realized that is that being in a consulting world, it's all about, relationship and all this like a capital that you accumulated from the years of working with different people. So I realized that if you work in a big firm, there's definitely a lot of advantage. One is that you already have an established name, you have established library, all these assets that you can just tap into. Rather than if you just open up your own company, you have to start from everything from scratch, have to like landing your first project. You have to hire people and have to like kind of like vet if they're competent or not, or maybe it's just become a one person company and which you do a CEO, you do staff, you do all this like janitor work, just one person company that actually does bring a lot of challenge. So I kind of just like wait in and I say, hey, like if I just do want to just kind of continue deliver, I want to continue to do the consulting work. There's really not major difference between like owning your own company or working for a big firm. And eventually you can become a partner, which means that you own a share of that firm. So it's like kind of like a very similar end goal. So I just decided, hey, like maybe I'll just continue work in the kind of like bigger company settings, and that will just kind of give me a peace of mind that I'm able to always land in different projects and with like such a big background with such like a big companies as my background, right?
Yeah, I was recently reading that in trades, and the question here is like, how is being a millennial in upper management,
Hmm.
in consulting, like how is maybe that's more problematic or like different things we have to do as a millennial to be successful. But I was reading about in trades like electrician, plumber, and stuff that when a millennial or younger person wants to get into it, there's like old people that get kind of they're not the best teachers and they're like very mean to people, especially or maybe in particularly if you're a woman, they seem to be in many places very grumpy about a woman trying to learn a trade.
Hmm.
But anyway, so do millennials, comma and women have to face more problems trying to be in consulting and that you've noticed as a millennial and as a lady?
Hmm. I would say like just from my own personal experience, um, I don't see much. So again, it's just from my own personal experience. I haven't like experienced like any like huge obstacles. I can say, oh, hey, this is a red flag. But if I just kind of like take a step back, if I just see the overall structure of our consulting, not just within my firm, or even just like in general, any kind of consulting firm, like when you say Big Four, which is the Deloitte, KPMG, PwC, and EY, and including other consulting company like McKinsey, BCG. So kind of like naming them like for days. But if you look at the actual leadership structures, you can just kind of tell, right? Like it's like super wide, super male dominant, like a very top. Like if you look at all this top management, you can just tell like who are on the top of the pyramid. But which I think that there is a historical reasons, right? So one is that consulting has been building up upon like kind of like relationship with your customers. It kind of building up on like who you know. And I'm just thinking that perhaps because of their networks, because you have a different background, you have maybe like you grew up. I'm just giving an example, if someone like grew up from like a more like a privileged community, you can just hang out with certain group of people, and those group of people or friends become different management within different companies. Now you have the relationship with them, and especially it's very personal, it's close relationship. It's easier for you to sell the project to them, to sell to your friends who's also in a manager or maybe like CEO, CIO position. So that help you to become a partner very easy and fast. But in opposite to, I'm just giving an example, maybe me, maybe if I just come out from China and moving here, or maybe just someone who's just kind of like grew up in maybe a less privileged community. Maybe you only hang out with different I would say like different cliche, different group, perhaps that you just don't know that many C-suite friends compared to different community. So I feel like I look at the structure and I was just thinking that, okay, it does have its reason why it's being structured in that way. And sometimes it may be just the nature of the business. And I know that different firm is trying their best to kind of like just break up this kind of like they call it glass ceiling, or like maybe we have our diversity advocacy groups that coming in to trying to bring in the awareness of diversity. But I'm just thinking that maybe fundamentally because of the business, the way that we run the business, the way we sell the project, it's not going to be a very easy problem to solve. It's just how you sell the project. You sell to the people you know. You sell to the people you have good relationship with. And those people should be in some kind of position of power who can buy your project again. So it's like just kind of like closed loop. Like how do we break it? I do not have like any precise answer for it, but I can see the problem of just being in this consulting world.
Yeah, there's I think John Carlin. I know his last name's Carlin. He made a joke. Like people were saying that, is there a conspiracy where like wealthy people are like colluding to do X, Y, and Z in a negative way? And he said, people don't need to collude if they have shared interests inherently, because they all went to the same school, they went to the same
Oh
universities,
yeah.
they're in the same golf clubs. Like they're not going to collude. They're just all rowing in the same direction, which makes sense. Is what you're kind of saying here.
hmm
So then I'm kind of curious, for you navigating up to where you are now,
hmm
was there like a patron or like a mentor that
hmm
helped make it easier for you? And then or was it just like pure grit on your part and just being, undeniable, that like helped you go up to where you are now?
Yeah, no, I definitely have the mentor. Also, like even within our firm, we have the structure that everybody will have
Mm,
their mentor. So they kind of serve as your career counselor and maybe a little bit like your manager, but not necessarily because you don't always work in the same project as your mentor or slash counselor. But they're the one that here that help you with navigating your career path. And so that's one, it's formality. And also like some people will just kind of like adopt their mentor. So maybe like in one project, you work with someone who like you just kind of like have really good relationship, you work very well, close. So they kind of become your like sideline or like an adopted mentor that who can also help you, and they're the champion. So whenever we, especially in our consulting world, so when you're trying to get promoted, so it's not just like you write on a piece of paper that hey, Claire did a great job. You have to have a group of people who says I approve. Especially you need
mhm,
to have be certain level of people to say that yeah I approve, yeah I heard Claire. So maybe in some cases you are doing a great job and someone else is also doing a great job. It's literally like kind of just like, like apple to apple comparison. Then it goes down to the path of like who will be your champion, who will voice that you have achieved certain things. So those are definitely I'll say you can say it's like a strategy that you have to like play with within the consulting firm. You have to like make sure that you are working closely with the mentor. I always just voice, hey, what did I do? And this is my goal. Maybe I want to go for the promotion this year. So can you help me to like plan the strategy? How do I plan? How do I go around to almost like an election campaign? You have to campaign for
mhm,
yourself, going around, and your mentor will be your campaign manager, going around also kind of talk to different people to support your case. So for me personally, I was super lucky, got a really great mentor. And I'll say that even for this year, I get to pick my own mentor. I would say like one of the observation that I had was that I was lucky to be able to choose my own mentor, and I got to work with actually two or three female counselors, and it's just quite different experience so far. Quite different experience being I do not know if it's really like gender play a role here, but it just feels like they just appear to be a little bit more caring and more into the details, a little
mhm,
bit more personal. I'll say just again, counselor is not necessarily your friends. they're your counselor. They help you to like direct your path. They don't have to be your friends.
Hmm.
So they're doing like something like above and beyond to kind of just being in the friend's position that helped to guide me through all this like promotion case. So I would say like I did find a little bit difference between kind of like a little bit junior differences here.
Are you at the level where you're going to start having people to mentor as well?
Yes, yeah, for sure. So I think as soon as you become a manager, then you will be able to start to have the consulees, and you can also have to help them to navigate their path as well.
General advice that you've heard that as you've navigated your career, you found out like is not good advice? And then is there advice that you heard that's like what to do?
Hmm. Yeah, sure. So this just reminds me of one of the advice that I got, but it was a long time ago when I just about to graduate from college and trying to like look for a job. So I could kind of just like socialize and network with different people. And one of the particular advice that someone gave me is like, hey, Claire, you have to know people to be able to get a job. And I was like, oh wow, so now I have to go around and network. So only if I'm able to build up some kind of relationship with those recruiters, maybe like hiring managers, then I will be able to like land on a good job. Is that it? And this person said, yeah, you have to. So, but guess what? Like I did not have to like really just get to like personally know someone. I don't have to like cold call someone. I did go through the rounds of the career fair. Um, but the way that I got my first job is really just join our student organization back in my college. I submitted my resume. They just put our resume into a CD and distribute it to the different companies. They saw my resume, call me, give me an interview. So I thought I was like, oh, why is this person telling me that? And then I realized that that's how he got his job. That's like
Mm,
his whole career life. That's the only way that he got his job is by knowing someone and someone give him a job. So that's why he's telling me that, hey, the only way to get a job is by doing that. So I would just try to be cautious. I kind of lesson learned too for me is that I would never just tell someone that the only way you get a job is to put your resume in a CD and then give it to the different company, and they will probably ask me what is CD, Claire. So that's one. So definitely do not just like what you said. Like don't just based on your own kind of anecdote, based on your own personal experience, just give people like some kind of very affirmative suggestions. Now, the particularly very good suggestion I got was from another mentor, or I'll say like a kind of like my manager from previous company. I'll say like it's not only just like a one advice, it's actually consistent feedback. So I like the way that he works with me. So whenever that a simple example, maybe like I'm writing a notes and I'm writing an email, sometimes I CC him, and immediately if he sees something, some minor corrections, he will immediately tell me, hey Claire, do this, or Claire, don't do this, or maybe he will even just show me, hey, look at how I construct the solution. So it's like not like just one advice, but it's like continually and
mm,
immediate feedback. So I found it like really helpful. So it's not like someone just like thinking that I'm not doing a good job, but they just like kind of like keep it down, either like keep it down or keep it vague,
mm.
or maybe just by the I don't know like end of a cycle because we have like a different cycle and you give different feedback. You wait until the end of the cycle and say, hey Claire, remember that 2-3 months ago you sent an email and then you should have right this way. So. Rather than that, he just like tell you immediately and tell you what to do. So I found that super useful, and I try to do that to the staff or my team member as well. If I have any suggestions, I just give to them immediately.
Mhm.
There's no hard feelings. It's all professional, and I'm trying to help them to kind of like just correct it. And once they learn it, and then I will even just give them kind of like affirmative, like, hey, remember yesterday I tell you to correct this flow, and you actually corrected, and you did a great job. So it's consistently like a feedback loop. Yeah.
I think being effective in a social context, like we're talking about, like feedback, etc.
Hmm.
It's not just how you take it, but then how do you like let them know you took it well, and then
Hmm.
so they can see the effects of it.
Yeah, yeah, I like it, and then I actually this reminds me that the way that I nowadays I like to show my appreciation. So sometimes it's not necessarily like a feedback, sometimes just like a positive thank
Mm,
you, right, to the people. And again, so for example, the mentor I talk about who consistently give me the feedback on time and immediately. So the soon after that I got promoted to the senior manager, I just messaged him. So basically we left the same company for like I'll say like 4 or 5 years now. but we still kind of keep in contact. But just send him a message, hey, like I appreciate what you did and what you helped me through my early career, and I believe that really helped me to get to the point that I am at today. And or maybe again, just the other example, maybe someone helped me with schedule a meeting or doing something. So like it's always just showing appreciation. It's just kind of like, again, the work is like already stressful enough. Just let people know that they're appreciated.
Mhm. I know, like one thing I like to do is when I post my links to the show, I
Hmm.
will use if there was like an EA at all involved, I'll thank the EA.
Hmm.
Even like sometimes even in the show, I'll say, "Hey, thanks this EA for helping." And
Hmm.
like because people always like just treat EAs or support staff as like like chairs. So they're not chairs; they have hearts. But
Yeah.
a little thank you doesn't hurt, and they
Yeah.
did
Yeah.
help
It
to
doesn't.
some
Yeah.
capacity. Like who cares? Just say thank you. Costs you nothing. It's like the ink is free. It's just digital.
Yeah, 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 for sure. And
Hmm.
yeah, so this reminds me that how I guess it's like the article came out several years ago. So it's like, well, while the let's say like a firm is giving out the same money, right? Like if the salary is the same, so what make this company stand out as far as the treating the employee goes? It's one firm is showing appreciation, and another firm is maybe not necessarily showing anything. So if you're getting paid the same, but you work for this firm that's kind of give you like an affirmative like appreciation, you feel your work has been recognized, you will probably want to like stay in that firm compared to different company. So
Hmm. Yeah, I think there was a research going off of what you said. There's research that was done that if you don't say thank you to someone, they're
mhm.
like 40 to 60% less likely to help someone else. So if you just say thank you,
I can
you're
see that.
you're
Yeah.
paying it forward.
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And then I know you wanted to share some of your tips for how do you go from like 0 to 60, essentially going from the point of not knowing an industry or not knowing a business to
Hmm.
learning enough to being competent to help them out. Learning with Lowell, I mean, this is a great topic for us. What are some of those strategies you use to learn quickly, effectively, and deeply so you can do like mobilize your vast repertoire of knowledge to help people?
Yeah. So first thing I'll do, also like so again, like because we keep working in a very like a fast-paced environment. So leverage what customer provides you. They will provide you the material. They will not just let you come in bland. So they will give you the documents and material right up. And secondly is that I like to study more. I'll say more systematically, more logically. I don't like to just learn things like A and B and like kind of like a fragmented. So normally I will take course actually. And I use, I don't know if this is like a more like an advertisement, but I would say just like online lesson. Okay, so you just go to the online lesson. There are a lot of like website like that. They will teach you again, example, supply chain 101, SAP 101. I'd love to learn those things systematically. Kind of just like see, okay, maybe some things I already know, I can maybe just overlook it, but there are like certain things that I might overlooked. So now I can build up this kind of like a complete foundation of library in my head rather than just kind of know one thing, maybe know A and B, but I don't necessarily know the connection between the A and B. So that's something that I like to do on my outside like part time, and even just buy the book. Those are like a serious book. So like XX for Dummies. So I bought like Supply Chain for Dummies a long time ago, SAP for Dummies maybe. So I think reading the book, learning fundament like kind of like systematically really helps. Now the last thing I like to do is to see that okay, so I'm learning, I'm getting all this information, kind of like input and bring into my little brain here, can I actually like produce the output? Meaning, can I explain them? Not only I can explain them, I can also explain them in such a simple, easy way in plain English that anybody will be able to understand me. So if I cannot explain it, that probably means that I don't understand it. So I just keep in this kind of like philosophy is as that if I can explain it, then okay, so I might be able to like understand this thing, and if I don't, I would actually just like ask, right? Like so, especially during the not like necessarily like playing call, maybe like just like within the colleagues, and then if they're talking about something, I say okay, maybe some of them I understand, but if they are saying something that I don't understand, I just kind of just ask, what do you mean, right? So but again, I'm at this point that I'm not afraid to be look like asking some stupid question because I know it's not necessarily stupid. It's just maybe just like I did not know, and I'm not afraid to ask those. Yeah.
There's a lot of times people read a chapter or read a section, and if you ask them like, "What'd you get from that?" They're like, "Well, I don't know." Like they don't
Hmm.
like. And I think to some extent, your idea of how can I use this, how can I lead with that, that helps
Hmm.
too. But do you have strategies to help retain that information so you
Hmm.
can use it later?
Yeah, I do, and especially I think we're sharing very similar methods. In fact, so
Mm,
I do take notes, especially for the ones that's a little bit more technical. I definitely have to take notes, and sometimes I would just even just open up my Word document and just kind of literally just write down each chapter. What is the key information that it have? I'm just kind of building up my own little handy book out of
mhm,
that book. So next time, I may not necessarily just reread this book because it's 800 pages, but I have my own little Word document, a
mhm.
little playbook, and I can just literally search for the key information that I need. So I
Yeah.
definitely have my notes, but I don't do that for all the books. I'll
Mhm,
say like, but only for like very technical books.
mhm. And then, are there books that you would recommend, or maybe books that you read in the last year that you've enjoyed in particular? Because I'm always looking for books
hmm
to read.
Yeah, I'll say like for the nonfictions, definitely Dummy for Supply Chain. It's a great book. I
Mm,
actually have it on my bookshelf, but yeah, I think it's called Dummy for Supply Chain and version 3.0. Yes, I actually have it. So it's called Supply Chain Management for Dummies. Um, and really, I think like when we hear this book's like for dummies, haha, silly, but in fact, it's actually like it's enjoyable to read. It's not boring at all, but then you are learning a lot of information that you
mhm,
could learn from those book. Because I also bought like some different supply chain management book from it's called a also like foundation book for CSCP. I also have them on my shelf, so it's just turning around. So those I read those book too, and I read the supply chain management for dummies. I just realized that they are sharing a lot of same information, but it's just the way that they wrote it in that supply chain management for dummies is just so easy to read, so
mhm.
easy to remember. So I definitely highly recommend that.
Yeah, the two for dummy books that I've read, it's
Hmm
like they're almost like a little whimsical. Like they're a
Uh-huh.
little like they're having fun with it. It's not just like yeah, I know what you mean. Like sometimes it's almost like a textbook where they're so dry. And I like a
hmm
textbook. I read textbooks for fun. But like for the dummy ones, they are like a little whimsical. Like it is like a very pleasurable read. Is
Yeah.
there is there anything you're looking to learn? Is there like a topic you're looking to dig into for I don't know, next couple months or whatever? But yeah, is there anything you're looking to learn? Maybe someone listening could be like, oh, I know that. They can message us and educate us. But yeah, what are you working on right now or looking to learn in the foreseeable future?
Yeah, so I am currently just learning this low code, no code build. I think it's become a very trendy thing right now within, especially within the I want to say like SAP community or even just within the different app building community. So the concept is that you don't necessarily have to know like C# or JavaScript to be able to build up a program or to build an app. So I'm learning to just kind of like building up my own little phone app for the order to cash especially for the kind of like building upon the I would say like SAP database and building a phone app on top of it. Because SAP does help you, they do have their own little GUI to help you to like place sales order, to do all the things, but they have a lot of fields. And they're asking for a lot of information. But then, especially right now, you're just thinking about like when we have our ordering or like buying experience on Amazon, everything's just with one click. It's super easy. So I'm just thinking that, okay, maybe if I could just build an app that's building upon the SAP, and they do have their own little. They bought another company that allow you to build your own app with no code, low code technology. So that's something I'm learning. I found it interesting because it's like one way is you are kind of just dragging and drop and doing all this UI. That seems easy, but you have to like also build up all this logic behind the app, and now that's where the challenge coming from, or where the learning curves come from. So that's something I'm kind of like working on right now on my part time.
Yeah, I yesterday I spoke to a person who runs a programming agency. They have
hmm
AI experts, C sharp, all of them.
hmm
And when they do their first MVP, they use something. I pulled it up just to double check. I wouldn't give you the wrong thing. It's called Bubble.io, and you can build the MVP, and it'll be a functional MVP that someone could like you could hand to someone and have them like go through the sequence that you're trying to get them to
That's
do
the
to
thing
like
that I'm
test it.
using actually.
Okay, yeah, okay, yeah,
I
all
thought
right, we're
that's
on the same
funny.
page.
That's actually the thing that I'm using right now. Just kind of like build up whatever that I'm thinking in my brain. I use that to visualize.
Is there like a place on the internet where you live predominantly where if someone's like, hey, I really like this Claire lady,
hmm
if she was writing stuff or like you putting out content, they can go to uh like stay up to date with anything, any of your thoughts or anything like that.
Yeah, I'll say like everybody's. Again, I'm on the LinkedIn a lot. It's a professional social network, if you will. So if anyone interested to connect, you can add me. You can just search for Claire Lung at UI on LinkedIn.
And that'll be in the show notes as well for anyone who's looking into it. But Claire, I want to thank you so much for coming on to the show today, sharing your journeys, what it's like to be a millennial in your life. Um, Thanks so much for being on the show today.
Yeah, and it was my pleasure to be here just speaking with you, Lowell.